Welcome to Off the Bench podcast. On today's episode, we have Lizzie Deignan joining us, a former world champion road racer, Olympic silver medalist, and the first woman to win the famous Paris-Roubaix race. And she's had some of the greatest success in her career since she became a mother in 2018. During the episode, Lizzie talked us through some of the biggest challenges that she's faced during her career, how she juggles motherhood and cycling, and why she remains more motivated than ever heading into another Olympic Games. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did recording it. Thanks, Lizzie, for joining us. Welcome to Off the Bench. It's so great to have you on. So this podcast is all about asking women in sport, athletes, about how they found ways to succeed, overcome barriers, just to get to the top. And obviously you've been involved in cycling, a really brutal sport, for the best part of 15, 16 years. How have you had that longevity, do you think? Does it surprise you even now to think of how long you've been in the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd have told me, 15, 16 years ago that I'd still be on the world tour circuit, I wouldn't have believed you. But I've been part of a complete evolution in women's cycling, and I think that's got a massive part to play in it. When I first started, obviously I was just chasing a dream. I wasn't earning a living. I was barely getting by, but the dream kind of sustained me. And I suppose earning a professional wage, all the professionalism that's happened within the sport has also kind of made it sustainable, allowed me to finally see the fruits of my labour. And I'd say sort of the last 5-6 years, I've felt close to retirement at some points, but actually I've looked at the opportunities that we have now and thought, I've worked so hard for these, I don't want to stop. I want to enjoy this, because we really have had to work hard for equality in our sport. And I think on top of that, the fact that I've had 2 kids, I've had 2 maternity leaves, I've had other things that have motivated me and given me a breath of fresh air and a different perspective. And I think having the kids has definitely made my career longer as well.
I was going to say, finding those new motivations, it must be so weird to look back at where things started for you. I think I read that your first pro contract, you were on like €200 a month or something, which is mad to think of. Like, I don't know how you survive on that. You don't. I guess you've got to kind of make up the difference somehow. But what was it like to be in cycling at that point? And what are your memories of it? Because a lot of women in sport who I talk to about kind of how far women's sport has come, and they say it's so great to have what we have now, but it was also so weird but also wonderful a lot of the times that we had when we were really young and we were just kind of trying to get by. I wondered, is it kind of rose tinted glasses that you look back on, and how does it feel to kind of look at those things now?
Good and bad, yeah. I mean, there were lots of difficult moments where it really felt just so unfair. I was as committed as the junior lads who I was going to the World Championships with. In fact, I was training harder than them. I wasn't getting the same wheels at the start line, or, I wasn't getting that kind of opportunity to make it a career. When I finished being a junior, I wasn't walking into a contract that, even meant I could live from it. The €200 didn't last very long. So it was frustrating, I would say. Yeah, there was a lot of frustration, but I don't know, I kind of always had this blind hope that it would get better. I did feel that I was on the cusp of something. There were women before me, even at that time, pushing for equality. And I suppose the good things were that you were surrounded by people who were completely passionate and dedicated to their sport for no other reason than loving the bike. It wasn't, tarnished by pressure or money or expectation. We were all just in it because we loved racing our bikes. And there's something quite pure about that. And you obviously meet and depend on a lot of volunteers and people who are really just in it, for the good of the sport. Not that that's to say that they're not now, but I think there was a kind of real collective feeling within women's cycling that we were all doing our best for each other.
Yeah. It's bizarre to think of kind of how far things have come, I guess, in the space of one career, and considering you're still at the top of that sport, so and have continued to kind of get better as your career's gone on. One, you were talking before about kind of wanting to enjoy the kind of fruits of your labor and enjoy the kind of progress, and that's kind of what keeps you motivated in it. One of those moments surely would have been the Paris-Roubaix race, which is a memory for me watching you. I've got to admit, I don't follow cycling kind of 24/7, but watching that race and watching your reaction at the end was so memorable, because you spoke very well there, very kind of eloquently after the toughest race I can imagine, like raining all the way through, your hands famously kind of bleeding onto the handlebars, and you spoke at the end about kind of what a moment it was for women's cycling as a whole, not just for you to be the first woman to win that kind of iconic race. What was that like, and what kind of, how does that stick for you in your memories? Is it kind of a highlight even now when you look back? It was 3 years ago, but how does it kind of sit for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the top memories I have in the sport. I think to people who maybe don't know what Paris-Roubaix is, it's kind of this iconic, tough race in cycling. It's been around for over 125 years for the men. So it's got this history. It's called the Hell of the North because you ride on these horrendous cobbles in the north of France. And the person who wins it is generally a hard man. And, you know, I kind of, the stereotypes of what, you know, women aren't capable of, you know, how we're underestimated in society. But obviously on the bike, it was always kind of deemed a bit too tough for us. So the fact that we eventually had the opportunity to race over cobbles, and then I pulled off, one of the biggest wins of my career there in such a cool way as well. I soloed to the win, and I could enjoy every minute of victory. And I
was going to say, you soloed to the win, 80 kilometers, wasn't it? 80 kilometers, like that's a long old stretch to be kind of just pulling away.
Yeah, but I said in post-race interviews that I felt the power of generations of women, and I did. It was a phenomenal day. Like I felt like, this is our time. We deserve this. Watch what I can do. Like I was slipping and sliding all over the cobbles in the mud, but I held my bike up. I didn't crash. I proved that I'm strong enough, but I'm also skillful enough to do it, as are the rest of the women's peloton. And it was just kind of a bit of a, how to say it politely.
You don't have to say it politely. Put it however you want.
It was just a bit of an up yours moment to any of those old cronies that had underestimated us, and it just felt so good. Like it felt way more than just me winning. It felt like a massive victory for women's cycling.
Yeah, I remember the scenes kind of at the end as well. A lot of your kind of fellow competitors and teammates kind of just hugging you, and everyone just, it felt like a real kind of collective moment of achievement, which you put so well just now. And I wonder, have there been other moments over the last few years that you've looked at and thought, wow, this is also a moment for women's cycling? Maybe you haven't won, but looking at, for example, the Tour de France Femme, like that feels like something that's been landmarked, been fought for so long. You got to race it last year, and I just wonder what that was like too, because it's been generations in the making.
It has, and we had to really push for that Tour de France. And I think it's undeniable that the Tour de France is the biggest stage in the world. If you talk to someone who doesn't know anything about cycling, they've heard of the Tour de France. And therefore, the platform of the Tour de France was something that we desperately needed in women's cycling. So the fact that we got it finally is brilliant. I suppose it's hard to kind of put it as the saviour of women's cycling. This has been, Trofeo Albinda in Italy that's been running for 50 years by an organisation that have supported women's cycling for so long and done such a good job of it. So it's kind of like swooping in when the good times are running. But we needed it, and I think it has brought the sport to another level. You have seen investment from bigger sponsors since the Tour de France has come on board, because there's no platform like it, really.
When you speak to people outside of cycling who maybe don't know a lot about it, are they consistently surprised by the fact that there hasn't been a Tour de France for women in the same way as there has been one for men over the last few decades? That it's only in the last couple of years that we've had that official race come together.
Yeah, I remember going on holiday with my sister in 2014. We went to Iceland randomly, and there was a tour guide there, and he was asking me what I did for a living, and I said, I'm a cyclist, and he said, oh, cool, you must ride the Tour de France. And I was like, no, we don't have one for women. And he was just like, oh, and the fact that he had sort of just assumed it was obvious that we'd have a women's Tour de France. And I hope that now we're at that point in society where, well, yeah, it's obvious, isn't it? I think social media has been brilliant for us, for our sport, because inequality is called out really quickly and there's no hiding place anymore. I think 10 years ago, the Tour de France got away with not having a women's event, but it's just, we're not in that place anymore. It's not okay to be one of the biggest races in the world and not have a female equivalent. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, you know better than most that cycling has come a long way, but there's still obviously big ways to go. What do you think is kind of the key thing that you would change about your sport going forward that you think would make a difference in terms of equality for women in road racing?
I don't think there is a key thing. I think it's so many small things that will add up. Things like, even as basic as like training schedules and training research is all done on men. There's still no real research into how things like the menstrual cycle affect training. I mean, we're getting there, but it's still on the back foot. Nutrition plans, are still catered to how a man can climb up, Alpe d'Huez as fast as possible, rather than how a female who has a menstrual period needs to fuel herself. So equipment is still designed for men. So many small things that, we just need to slowly change. I think, progression needs to be sustainable, and things like the minimum wage that have been brought into the Women's World Tour have been brilliant. You can now see 5 years later that we have so much more strength and depth in the peloton because we've had 5 years of women being paid a wage. And it's never been about us being able to ride 3 weeks in the Tour de France or not, because right now we have a week Tour de France. And the argument is, can women do 3 weeks? Well, yeah, no problem. But only if you have a peloton that has been paid properly for the last 5 years do you have enough women who are at the standard and the level to do it. Physically, there's no issue. So it's about kind of things catching up and all the small bits coming together, I suppose.
I mean, that's such a good point, just about how the sport is built around male bodies. Even the sports science is built around male bodies, and I'm sure that must have come to the fore for you when you had both your children as well, because the kind of recovery for female athletes when it comes to pregnancy, it comes to post childbirth, that it's really just still in its infancy in a weird way, because as recently as someone like Jess Ennis-Hill has spoken about how difficult it was for her, and I'm sure you've got a lot of solidarity with a lot of the other British Olympians who have gone through it. I just wonder, what was that experience like for you? I know that it would have been different for both pregnancies, but was it surprising to you just how little maybe information there was about what the best way to go about coming back from a pregnancy was? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I relied on Google, really. I mean, Google and other athletes who'd been through it, but there was no expert guiding me through it. And I wish there had been, but I suppose there's so many different nuances in pregnancy and childbirth and then the baby that you bring into the world too. So there is a bit of kind of feeling your own way through it. But yeah, we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of supporting athletes back to elite competition. I mean, I don't think any sport doctor in postnatal recovery even asked me what kind of childbirth I had, which is pretty integral to recovery. It in terms of sports doctors, etc., they can do a brilliant job. But in terms of experience with how to help me get back to my best, I really felt, I was doing it alone. So I hope in the next few years there is a bit more support. Definitely for me, like hormone imbalance is a huge thing that's definitely under researched. Coming back from having the kids, I find that, I react so differently in my menstrual cycle period than I ever used to. And I think that is a difference to, pre-post children. So I'd love to be able to understand my body better in that way, but it's accessing experts who are experts in sport, but also in female anatomy and all the rest. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's still rare, I guess. You mentioned you kind of relied on Google and maybe athletes who had done it before. Which athletes did you kind of go to kind of, were there cyclists that you went to who could give you insight? Because obviously it's everyone has different pregnancies, different births and experiences, but also you're all in different sports, and a cyclist coming back to training would be very different to a runner coming back to training. Those elements are maybe underestimated too.
Yeah, I read Joe Pavey's book actually after I'd had my daughter, and she made 2 comebacks. And that's when I started getting the idea of maybe we could do this again. And my husband was like, oh God, stop reading these books. But she was really insightful. Also, obviously Jessica Ennis-Hill was, she was always there if I needed to contact her, which was brilliant. Sarah Story was really, really helpful because she's a cyclist and she breastfed her children for quite a long time. And that was something I wanted to be able to do as well. And figuring out how on earth you meant to breastfeed and train was, for the first time, I just had absolutely no idea. So she helped me guide me through that and kind of debunked a few of the lactic acid making your milk taste funny myths and all that kind of stuff. So just there was a few women who've been really, really good. Yeah.
Love that. But you have credited both your children with helping helping with the longevity of your career, because they provide you with new motivation. You spoke about that at the beginning of our conversation, but I've seen you spoken about that before. I just wonder, did it surprise you how this kind of new motivation came when, for a lot of women, maybe it wouldn't have come. Maybe they would have thought, okay, I'm done. The juggle is not something I'm really into. I'm not up for it, or just don't really want to put myself through it. But you seem to have kind of thrived since having your first child and your second child.
Yeah, I suppose you spend so many years just chasing this goal and living, breathing cycling, and I was really tired of it, particularly after the Rio Olympics. I was just tired of the stuff around it, but not tired of going out on my bike. Like the pureness of cycling, being on my bike is still my favorite thing to do. And I just made a decision purely emotionally about wanting to start a family with my husband. And I kind of, in my first pregnancy, was like, well, I'm determined to come back, but I'm also open-minded if it's not going to work, because I didn't know what to expect. And I was pleasantly surprised with what my body was capable of. It really did surprise me. And I thought, well, if I can do it once, I can do it twice. And for me, it's just being not getting lost in my identity as a cyclist. I think that was really strange for me when I first told people that I was pregnant with my daughter. People didn't react in the way I expected them. People's reaction was like, oh, well, what about cycling? And I thought, oh my goodness, I must have just turned into a cyclist in their eyes. And that was never enough for me. And I'm so happy that I have kind of more to my identity than just trying to be a professional athlete, because I've seen that go wrong for so many people. It's not easy to retire from professional sport. And I don't feel like when I retire, I'm falling off a cliff. Like I have a lot going on, and I think it's a healthy balance to do both.
Yeah. Did you notice a different kind of reaction when you told people you were pregnant with your son? Because I know it was that kind of 3 or 4 years between them? 4 years, but
4 years,
that feels like quite a long time though in terms of, I think, how attitudes and kind of how attitudes maybe have changed to women in sport, continuing their careers after having children. Maybe your experience was different, but that from the outside, that's how it looks anyway.
It was exactly as it should have been. When I told people that I was pregnant with my son, it was nothing but congratulations and wow, this is amazing. And yeah, such a difference to when I told them I was pregnant with my daughter. And I just was so proud of that change in our sport, particularly. Never expected that would happen. And in just 4 short years, it really was very, very different.
But in a big way, it's because of the ecosystem around you and the different kind of experiences that other women might have had in different sports during that. Someone like Serena Williams, for example, made it kind of such a huge story in world sport, as it should be. But also because of maybe how well you did after coming back from having your daughter, you probably changed a lot of people's minds about what was possible. I wonder if other kind of cyclists have come to you and spoken to you about that, and whether they've actually said to you, you've inspired me to go do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of women who have come to me and said, you've inspired me to do the same thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I hope you're not thinking of me in the middle of the night. But yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, particularly my team has been phenomenal. You know, I was kind of pregnant with my daughter. I was one of the best riders in the world, and I didn't have a team, and they stepped up and they negotiated with me as a rider that was the best in the world. They didn't try and kind of offer me, you know, anything other than a contract I deserved. And again, when I told them I was pregnant with my son, they were just delighted for me and offered me full maternity leave and a place in the team, and the time it took to recover from delivering him. So, yeah, teams, sponsors, etc., have a huge part to play in it.
We know now, after your experience, that your pregnancy, your maternity leave started a kind of ripple effect for other women in the sport. Can you tell us about that?
So until I was pregnant with my daughter, there was no maternity clause in any of our contracts. So all of our contracts are kind of headed up by the UCI, our world governing body. And after my pregnancy, a maternity clause was put in all of our contracts. So there is a minimum standard that all teams have to be held accountable to. I mean, some go above and beyond, but yeah, there is a minimum standard there.
I mean, that is so important, just to ensuring that obviously you want all the top riders, and everyone who's a part of the team is going to be a top rider, but you want everyone who is part of that system to have the same kind of experience. So that's incredible to hear. And I just wonder, I wonder what it's like to have your daughter's now old enough, I guess, to understand everything about what you do and see what you do. What is it like to have this person who's obviously so important to you and such a huge part of your life, also watching and appreciating what you're doing in your sport? Because it's quite rare. Like, not a lot of athletes can say that they have that. I guess not a lot of female athletes in particular.
Yeah, it was very funny this weekend. I just did Ride London and she was watching it on the television, and her comments were, well, you're at the front for a while, but then you're at the back. I was like, well, yes, accurate. And she said to me a few times, so why did you used to win a lot of bike races and why not anymore? And I'm like, well, it's your fault, actually. No, she really enjoys it, actually. She finds it very odd, you know, if people come up to me at bike race or whatever and want an autograph or whatever. And you know, she's sort of like, why is everyone your friend? And yeah, she loves riding her bike too, which is really nice. But she also couldn't care less, which is obviously brilliant too. When I come home and I've had a bad race or whatever, she's just totally oblivious. And yeah, I think she's a bit of a glory supporter.
It sounds like she could have a commentary career ahead of her. She's very, very, yeah, she really dissected that race for you. I mean, obviously this year is an Olympic year. It's been the thing people have been aiming for 4 years, and for you, I'm sure it's no different. I know you've spoken before about how in cycling there are kind of different opinions about where the Olympics rank, but for you it's just as high as any of the other kind of Grand Tour races. And I wonder why is that? What kind of what is it about the Olympics that makes it so special to you? Because across different sports, it can mean different things.
I think because I grew up in a non-cycling family, a very sporty family, we were always doing stuff. But I remember watching the Olympic Games, and growing up, my idol was Denise Lewis. I just thought she was so glamorous and feisty and, you know, obviously brilliant as well. And I just thought she was just like a powerful woman. And I just remember thinking how cool she was. And I tried to be an athlete. Like, I was an 800 meter runner, but I was good, but I was never going to be, you know, at the Olympics for it. So the fact that I go to, you know, I have an Olympic medal is still a bit odd, still a bit of imposter syndrome there. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm an Olympian. And yeah, I guess it's because I wasn't a cyclist growing up. It wasn't the dream, but to be an Olympian is something that's, you know, just sounds really cool.
I love that, the imposter syndrome. You've had your medal for, was it 12 years now, and it still doesn't seem real to you. I mean, I will never have that experience, but that kind of shows, I guess, the magnitude of what it meant to you at the time and what it still does mean to you.
Yeah, very much so. I think, you know, there are only a handful in terms of the amount of people who go to an Olympic Games. There are only a handful of people who come away with medals, and it is really a pinch me moment that I get to say I'm one of those people, because every single athlete who's attended those games has lived and breathed their sport and put everything into it. So yeah, to have a bit of silverware from it is incredibly special still.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about London, because everyone describes it as just the most special experience. For you, what are your reflections on that? And where did you kind of see, was it the thing that you felt catapulted your career? How does it kind of rank for you in terms of everything that you've achieved?
The start of me believing in myself on the road. Yeah, I was going to the Olympics aiming for a top 10, and then I came away with an Olympic silver medal and the first medal for Great Britain. And what was really special about it was everyone around me finally understood why I was doing this. All my friends at school thought it was weird. Like, it was a weird old man sport back then, you know, it's only recently become cool. And yeah, I was kind of on the outside a bit with it, like the dedication that I put towards it, and people got it finally. And people embraced it, you know, neighbours, people in my town. I think the whole country embraced it. It was such a nice period of time to be British. I do think we are great at getting behind sporting events in this country. I think it's quite unique and special. I don't think in terms of like being patriotic or whatever, like, you know, the Italians on my team, within 5 minutes of meeting them, you would know absolutely they were Italian, because it's in their DNA. And I'm not sure that I'm, you know, like that in terms of being British, but I think there's something special about that Olympic Games, was that everyone came together and felt really proud of being British, which was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And heading into Paris, it would be your fourth games. We had Rio, which I know was such a difficult ordeal for you. For those who wouldn't know, you were only cleared to race a few days before the race, when the Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled in your favour about disputed whereabouts failure. It was a complete mess, and there was so much attention around you in those days before. And I wonder, how do you kind of reflect on that? Because it was kind of at the height of your career. You were world champion at the time. And I just wonder, do you kind of look back at that with any, I don't know, ill feeling about what could have been, or because you've achieved so much since then, it's something that was a moment, something that I'm sure wasn't a great moment, but it's something you've been able to move past because of everything that's happened since?
I think I look back and just want to give myself a hug. I just think, gosh, wow, like that was such an intense period and so incredibly difficult, like personally and professionally. I just wish I'd stood up for myself more. I wish I'd not let it get to me. I wish I just wanted to hide in the road race in Rio. I didn't care about the result. And I wish I'd not done that because I'd worked so incredibly hard towards that goal. But it did change me as a person. I would say there was a before and after. I was definitely quite naive about a lot of things before Rio. And I think kind of the media attack, let's put it as that, kind of woke me up to a lot of things that I'd just been quite naive about and made me realise why I was motivated to race, who I was doing it for, why was I chasing a dream. What, you know, it kind of stops you in your tracks really when something like that happens. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why I decided to have my daughter like a year later, because, you know, I realized I'm not doing it to keep people happy or to prove anything to anybody, because it's kind of, it doesn't really matter what you do if, you know, media are against you. You know, it doesn't matter what you say actually. And the most important person keep happy as yourself, and you know, your family and friends who love you and know who you really are. And I just kind of, I suppose, reflected and was like, well, it's time to make me happy and not worry about keeping other people that I can't keep happy. And I suppose because of that I decided to have my daughter and find back the love for the sport really. It was really at the kind of height of Twitter use, I suppose. So it was mainly the trolling, I suppose, that was quite intense. And I think within sort of an hour of the news breaking, I deleted Twitter off my phone. I just didn't look at it anymore, just for self-preservation, really. I wish my family had done the same. I think my dad spent quite a lot of time being quite upset and riled up by strangers, you know, and I wish he'd, you know, not done that. But everyone had their own way of dealing with what was going on. I suppose, it just made me have thickened skin and to realise that you are not in control of other people's opinions of you, especially, you know, in a media space. And it just made me realize actually I'm sort of entertainment rather than sport. It was a weird one. I'd not ever kind of considered that. It was all just about being as good as I could be on a bike. And then this weird transition happens where suddenly there's expectations of you publicly, or, you know, to have certain opinions or to do certain things. And it's a really weird place to find yourself in, because you're not taught that as a young athlete. It just happens organically. And I think, gosh, I would struggle now if I was a young athlete being straight away thrust into the limelight, and the expectation to kind of live your life publicly is quite intense, really. And I just don't do that. And I try to be as authentic as I can be, but I will, you know, I never read back an interview. I never listen back to a podcast or whatever, because I think you can pick yourself apart and say, oh, I didn't mean to say it like that, or I didn't. And I just don't want to live like that. I just want to kind of, you know, be as authentic as I can and happy-go-lucky with it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, your social media is just full of the authentic kind of parts of living life as an athlete and a mum of two young kids. I think it's really, you paint a real picture, I think, of the reality of it, the highs, the lows and everything. It's if you're trying to achieve authenticity, you've got it right there. And I think it's really refreshing. You. No, I think it's really refreshing, because you don't get a lot of that, like you say, online. But yeah, the last thing on that, I wanted to touch upon what you said about the way you approach the race and just wanting to hide in a race. You're such a competitor. I wonder, do you look back and think that's the only race I've ever done that in, where I've just not even gone for it in the way that everyone knows you to go for it in every kind of race that you've been in before that and since then, I guess?
That's a really good question. No, I think there's a safety in hiding, and you do it as an athlete more. I do it more than I should probably sometimes, because it's easier to fail on your own terms than really put everything into a race and then fail. So sometimes there's a bit of self-preservation, and maybe you almost doubt yourself before you're on the start line. I'm sure plenty of people do that. It's like the age-old thing of people enter, a sportif or whatever, they train really hard, and then the week before people get a cold. And it's just our way of like protecting our expectations. So I try to like not do that. But it is a safer feeling than putting all the pressure on yourself and saying I'm going to deliver this weekend.
No, I think that's really interesting though, because I think people look at athletes, professional athletes, and think that they're almost like robots, that they can just they go out there and they can deliver and they can kind of clear their minds, especially in a sport like endurance sport, like cycling, for example. The mentality is so much a part of what you do, and if your head's not in it, you're not going to be able to do it, I guess. And from the outside, it can seem like there'd be nothing to stop you from going through it all the way. But I think that's a really interesting insight into what it can be like, I guess, to be on that start line as a professional, because not every day is perfect, and not every training week is perfect, and not every race is perfect, I guess. And like you say, there's that kind of fear of failure that comes for everyone, including kind of professional athletes.
Yeah, I think, there are few and far between professional athletes who have it completely dialed for every race. Particularly, I think, women, I think there's a lot of self-doubt often. In my experience, we talk about things that, as a team, we'll go around in a circle in January or February and talk about the things that we need to improve on. And 90% of us will say self-confidence. So, it's still something that we all need to work on, and we do help push each other. But, self-doubt is a huge disadvantage in sport, but it's definitely still there.
I mean, it's remarkable how many top sportswomen have spoken to me about kind of imposter syndrome, which is just, it's mind blowing, because you're the best at what you do, but you're still kind of feeling this moment, or in a kind of tight moment, in a stressful moment, you're still feeling like, ooh, am I meant to be here? Am I meant to still be there? So I think it's refreshing to hear athletes talk about it though, because I think there's you've got to kind of open up to the fact that, okay, athletes are actually human as well. They do some superhuman things, but there's a lot that we maybe need to give them credit for too, in the fact that they kind of get past a lot of things happening in the background to get the results that you do. So on the subject of looking ahead to Paris, then I know qualification is still and selection is still ongoing, but what's motivating you for a fourth Olympics? What do you want to achieve? What's kind of the dream and the aim in your head?
To be the best version of myself on that day in Paris, I think, mentally and physically. I've probably got, I think my best performance was in London. Mentally, probably my best performance was in Rio in terms of my resilience. And Tokyo was this weird mixed bag of everything. So I'd love Paris to be just a positive experience. I'd love to kind of replicate the feeling that I had in London, that I had nothing to lose, because I don't have anything to lose. I really want to take that kind of mindset into it. And enjoy the process and not feel like an imposter. I think that's what I want to get out of it. I want to give everything I have on the day and walk away knowing I couldn't have done more, and that my mindset didn't let me down, I suppose.
I was looking up kind of the actual race, the route and everything, and the men's road race is still longer than the women's. I wonder, is that something that bothers cyclists themselves? Because I think maybe people on the outside might be thinking, why is the men's race longer than the women's? Does that have to be the case? What would you say, I guess, to that?
No, I don't think it's a big deal. I actually think men's races need to be shorter. We're an endurance sport. I'm not sure that it matters whether it's 150 kilometers or 200 kilometers. I think the race might just kick off a little bit later in that case. So I think most men would agree with me and say that it's fine to have it a little bit shorter.
Fair. I think it's something that you get across different sports. Like people get quite worked up in tennis about 5 sets over 3 sets and what should you do? And a lot of the athletes you speak to are like, yeah, the men's matches are too long. So it's kind of, yeah, people get twisted up in it when actually maybe it's you're thinking of it the wrong way around. But just as a final question, this is a final question we ask kind of everyone we have on the show, and it's who is the person or the woman in your life or in kind of world sport that you look up to the most, or who's inspired you the most? It can be kind of someone who inspired you when you were younger or someone who's continued to inspire you during your career.
Gosh, there's so many. I would still go with Denise Lewis. Just in that she just always seemed unapologetically herself. Like, she's always been loud and vivacious and just powerful. I think she's awesome.
Love that. Well, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time, for kind of going through all the decades of your career and literally picking apart different parts of it. I really appreciate it. It was really interesting to get your take on cycling as a whole, but also your career specifically. But thank you so much for taking the time and good luck. Hopefully see you in Paris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.